note as we come back into session that Councilmember Polinsky has left the meeting. Thank you. Okay, where are we? Now to Agenda Bill 4713, a resolution, amendments to Resolution 1053 regarding contract and agreement thresholds and procurement policies. David?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As we discussed it during council comments last week, you requested that we bring forward a resolution that would amend a previous resolution, which is Resolution 1053, which you passed previously, establishing thresholds for delegating certain contract and agreement authority to the mayor. And so in your packet, you have a proposed resolution that indicates your desire to make amendments to existing Resolution 1053. And then the actual Exhibit A and Exhibit B to that resolution, we have stricken anywhere it references the threshold, which is $40,000 on a number of the different items, specifically item A for professional service contracts and agreements, item B for maintenance and service contracts, C is lease agreements. It's not applicable to item D, interlocal agreements. In the public works project, item E, stricken the $40,000 for projects that are not identified in the budget but have retained the language. When you specifically budget a project very precisely, that would be there. And then all the other ones have that. If there's a monetary involved, stricken the $40,000, there's a blank space for the council in their action tonight, if you so choose, to amend this resolution to specify an amended threshold. And then whatever you specify would just be subsequently put into the chart, which is the second exhibit, and it's just for reference. So the recommended action this evening is to read the resolution by title only, and then, if you so choose, prescribe amended thresholds, and then after doing that, pass and post the resolution in the usual manner.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the resolution by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
A resolution amending Resolution 1053, establishing thresholds for the delegation of contracting and agreement authority to the mayor or designee, and directing the finance director to establish and administer the necessary policies and procedures for contracting, agreements, and purchasing to ensure compliance with state law, municipal code, and any applicable resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we enter the amounts 10,000 every place that 40,000 is crossed out, and that we pass and post the resolution in the usual manner.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to amend all of the $40,000 thresholds to $10,000 and to pass and post the resolution in the usual manner. Council discussion.
I have a question. Do we have, I had some discussions with some other, well, at least former local officials, former council member in Camas, who's now a state legislator, and she said that Camas's thresholds were lower than 40,000. I think she said they were 10,000 or 20,000. Do we have any idea of what other local jurisdictions do on this?
There's a wide variety of thresholds that are out there. When we did brought this resolution forward per council's request previously, we did have a presentation that had all of those amounts. I don't
remember what they were.
They're as high as 100. And they're as low as 0. We're not aware that Camas has, when we did our research and even with recent conversations with their city administrator, they do not have a threshold.
So all contracts are approved by the council in Camas?
They have a couple of practices that are in place where there's some deviation from that, but they bring it forward typically on a consent.
Okay, and these contracts are going to appear on consent, generally speaking?
I would appreciate some direction on that upon passage. If that's what you do, I would request that contracts that seem to be pretty straightforward, maybe things you've seen before, renewals, or things that are clearly implementing policy that you've already prescribed, that we would be okay with having those be on your consent. The question would be, do you want us to workshop them with you first, or just have them show up on consent with a thorough staff report? Then if you have questions, certainly you could pull it, and then we would discuss it.
There was, previous to this going in, and this is just general recollections, we were pulling a lot of stuff off of consent no matter what, to the point where we actually, when I first took office, we did away with the consent agenda because there was a
Everybody pulled something?
well, no, I did it because there was so much discussion during the campaigns and that type of stuff that there was too much in there. People didn't know what was going on, da-da-da. So for 6 months, 7 months, we went ahead and pulled those 9 months. When we went back to putting them together, we were pulling so much off of there. I actually went back to the staff and said, I'm thinking maybe we would save time by not doing a consent agenda anymore. There's so much of it coming off of there for
Right.
discussion that why are we doing this?
Right.
So,
Well, my view would be a contract that in the judgment of staff is routine, however you choose to interpret that word. I have my own idea what it means, that we don't need a workshop, and it can be on consent with a thorough staff report.
Seems eminently reasonable to me.
I agree.
Thank you.
Now, could I ask, bring up something that's kind of remotely more than remotely connected to this? Public agencies have public bidding laws they have to comply with. Under state law, they're only required to comply with them for public works, not for supplies, procurement, things like that. I believe Vancouver has an ordinance where they, to some degree, they apply to procurements and things like that. Or we do not have an ordinance where our public bidding laws just strictly go through for public works projects.
We have a number of things. We do have some in code, and then we have some policies that the council has established. Oh, okay. They are on their way to the council.
Okay. So we're going to get a procurement.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. Part of the direction that was provided when this resolution was done, and just one of the things that's been on Jennifer's work plan, is an overhaul of that.
Great.
And just, my memory is that this 10,000 is what it used to be.
we never had one before.
I don't think we've ever had one prior to this one.
I'm fairly sure we did. Otherwise, we've got that contracting problem of taking dry cleaning to the dry cleaners, creating a contract.
Again, and I know you referenced it at the last meeting, there is no one on staff that has any recollection of any discretion by the mayor to sign things, whether they're in budgets or not.
We're talking about mayor's prior to the time we approve this resolution. Okay. Well, I think that's a little cumbersome.
It made for very long meetings.
Yeah.
Dave?
I always love these fill-in-the-blank exercises. And the thing I need to know, Mr. Mayor, from you personally is, what is the effect of reducing this $30,000?
I believe the direct effect is going to be potentially and likely more items on your agendas, more items on your consent agendas, more items on your agendas, more items on the consent agenda that could come onto the regular agenda and longer meetings.
I've already picked up on that, but what's the impact on you and your ability to get things done?
Absolutely none. We won't be signing things as quickly and as timely as they come through. They'll need to wait for council meetings for approval.
Let me revise my question then. How does this affect your ability to get things done on a timely basis?
I think we were still timely before. Most of our vendors, most of our contractors, everybody that we deal with understand that there are time limits in there. Quite frankly, I think some of them are probably appreciative sometimes when they don't have to wait 2 or 3 more weeks for the paperwork that just finally got finished to go through. But we wouldn't be the only ones, so I don't
I
think
could-
it's going to affect anything
I
really
could
at all.
speak to the impact in terms of our ability to be timely and to conduct the city's business. We will have to have a little bit more forethought as we're engaging in the projects. There'll be a little impact to the team because right now for items that fall under the current threshold, we're not preparing staff reports and an agenda bill, and we're not, it's not part of Rose's chore and all of that. Now, is it a hugely significant impact? I would say that it's not. And with the direction and confidence that I just heard about deferring to staff's judgment with respect to the use of the consent agenda, and we won't take that confidence lightly. We will do our best to use that appropriately, and we'll learn as we go if there are ones that you want us to, if we start to see a certain type of them be pulled, then we'll know, okay, this one we should put on there. So I think we will be able to still conduct the city's business, but it will have a little bit of an impact.
Last question, if I may. If you were king for a day, what would you, what amount would you put in the blank?
I'm indifferent on it. We were, I think, appreciative when the council first put this in there because literally, I think all of you that were there then, were here then, saw the amount of items on your agenda go down significantly in some very short meetings, which were okay for routine things that were in the agenda or in the budgets, things that were spelled out in there, things that were within appropriations. So I think from a staff standpoint, it probably makes more of a difference than it does to me at all, and I don't want to speak on their behalf. One of the things that we have, that I have stayed with is making sure that anytime a department has something on your agenda, even typically if it's on the consent agenda, making sure that those department heads or someone is here to answer any questions. For those that are truly what we feel are routine, and Dave or Jennifer or somebody else feels like they can take that up for them, I probably still won't ask those department heads to be in attendance. If there's something that we know that there are going to be questions, they'll certainly be here. If there are ones that potentially are fairly complex, we're going to make sure that they're here as well. But I think we're fine either way. Doesn't. Jennifer?
Yes, I think contracts or agreements that are 10,000 or less are considered pretty much routine. Anything over 10,000, and I think, potentially we raised it to a little bit too high of an amount and realized pretty quick that we really weren't getting to see how money was flowing out of the city as often as we did before. And, we had looked at every contract and, potentially debated, as far as the merit of a contract or specifics of a contract, and I thought that was a good thing. I'm fine with reducing this contract and agreement approval threshold. I'm glad we still have the threshold and in a more formal way. And I'm perfectly fine with the items being put on the consent agenda because at least they're there. We have the paperwork that goes with them, within our packet for the meetings, and we can pull them if we so desire to discuss them or debate them or ask lots of questions. And I support going back to the previous way of doing things.
Clarification, the previous way is,
We wouldn't be going back to a previous way either way.
Well, it's going back to bringing
It's
more
closer to the
of the
previous way.
contracts back to. I have to concur with Councilman Greenlee. I remember that we did, when Nabil Shah was the former city administrator, there was some sort of a maximum amount that they could sign for.
I don't think it was anything formal. I don't recall it.
Might not have been formal. I don't know if we had a threshold.
Oh, well, hang on. No, there was one that Nabil signed that the council, something with the port. There was a sponsorship, there was an advertisement, there was something that was $1,200 that he got spanked pretty severely for.
I think the cleaning deal is that, we didn't consider that to be a formal contract. It was looked through our payables and approved that.
I didn't remember that until you mentioned the bill.
But
Anyway,
I basically agree with Jennifer. I think the purpose here is mostly to have the council be better informed about what's going on in our city. As someone pointed out to me, actually several people have pointed out to me, if you want to know what's going on, follow the money.
any other comments? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to drop the threshold to $10,000 and pass and post the resolution in the usual manner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The other items, council, I'm going to give you, the staff and myself are going to give you some options in regards to department budgets, police, public works, other, finance. Jennifer, if you want to keep that one in there, second quarter update and the 2014 preliminary revenue and expenditure estimates of the budget. Staff tells me that we can, if you care to, because of the lateness of the hour, we can postpone any or all of those to the following meeting, and we will still make timelines as are prescribed under statute.
I move we postpone.
Up to you whether we go through those now or we put them onto the next
Second.
agenda.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, especially since so many of these things were posted so late that I haven't had a chance to even look at them yet. So the opportunity to look at them and go through them would be much appreciated.
Dave?
Can we make an exception for the police on that?
You want to go ahead and go through his?
I'd love to see it. Subject to being overruled by my colleagues.
I don't object.
I'm fine with that as well.
Chief, would you like to go through your budget?
Go home.
You want to go home?
I want to go home.
You'll be quick.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Tonight, we're going to look at the Police Department's 2013 budget for both police, code enforcement, the court expenditures, and animal control. As you can see, the overall budget for police department and code enforcement is just shy of $3 million, with salaries and benefits being the biggest players there, followed by intergovernmental agreements of $245,000 and some change. And it trickles on down to we get down to the non-obligatory funds, which equal about $132,000 and some change. Excuse me. In an effort to tell me, won't look at these charts, the pie graphs. Getting down to the non-obligatory budget for police and code enforcement of $132,375. That's made up of supplies and small tools taking the biggest hit, followed by repairs and maintenance at $33,000, and professional services coming in just under $20,000. The rest of it, travel, training, uniforms, communications, make up the bulk of that fund.
So, can I interrupt real quick? Does that include the reserve officers too? in that
That's
budget?
over here in your,
It's different. Oh, okay, there it is. Thank you. Having trouble getting the PowerPoint to come up on my computer.
Just a question. When we incarcerate people, we pay a per diem rate on them, either to Skamania County or Clark County.
We do.
That's included in which line?
We'll get to that.
Thank you.
Okay, and this was where we'd get to that point here with the 2013 court budget. We have an overall budget there of $419,000. And in that first intergovernmental services, the $283,000 is where you'll find our incarceration costs, court, work crew, that sort of thing. followed by professional services, which includes our indigent defense, the prosecuting attorney, interpreter funds. There is no obligatory funds built into the court budget. It is what we are billed for and what we use.
On that point, I remember last year when we were talking about the police budget and the court budget that it might be wise to have some conversation with the district court about trying to recover some of our costs in the fees that they usually impose on people who are sentenced.
Well ahead of you.
You're working on it still?
Nope, I believe we implemented it.
We actually have been working with Camas, if I understand correctly, on reducing our costs through municipal court. In that we operate a portion of that, and the county is supplying the manpower. We are now also, just recently, Clark County has contracted for the, excuse me, I'm tired, for the monitoring. So we are paying a fee to do electronic home confinement. County is now contracted out with a private vendor to take care of that, so we are off the hook for those fees. So we'll see a little bit of relief there. Otherwise, we're just talking purely labor-to-labor costs for either having a county employer or implementing, doing this ourselves and putting our own employees in there.
In addition, though, Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but starting in August, we started asking the judge to also levy against the defendants the costs of incarceration and those items as well.
Yeah, that's something that Scott Rustin has been working on.
I know, I've
Yep.
talked to Scott about it, I'm not sure what, I think we started in August, but I couldn't swear to it.
He actually did start in August.
I know that was his date, so, okay.
I know you mentioned it to him, but I think he.
So what it came down to, we had a meeting with Judge Hagensons, who is our presiding judge out here now, and Judge said, you know, as long as the prosecutor makes that part of the whole thing, I don't have a problem doing that. What you can collect, you can collect. What you can't, oh well, you're getting nothing now. Let's give it a try.
Get 10%.
I know the county clerk for Superior Court cases is working on getting, you know, has a whole collections operation going, and maybe that's a conversation we could have with the district court.
Yeah, I think the numbers were, we were hopeful, even at a partial recovery of that, it was like a $20,000 figure a year that we could take out of the, or at least credit back to the incarceration line items. But, well,
Within the Association of Washington Cities Legislative Committee, it has been a hot-button issue for years under the heading of inmate medical costs. Is that a significant problem for us?
It is. So far, we've been pretty successful at dodging some of those, or getting around some of those costs. But it does happen. I've spoken to some of my colleagues, and they are getting hit with any type of medical costs associated with arrests anytime we have someone in custody. So there's certain things that we just can't avoid or we can't release, say a domestic violence case where there's an arrest and the arrested party has a medical condition we can't cite and release. But
I guess my question mostly is, should I bubble that up on my priority list when I start talking to Legislative Committee?
that would be a yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. For animal control, their overall budget is a little over $200,000. Most of that consists of salaries and benefits. When you go down to their non-obligatory funds, that's the next biggest chunk of change at $31,920. And under that, most of that is used up in professional services through West Columbia Gorge Humane Society for the boarding care of the animals. A small amount, $4,000 for repairs and maintenance, supplies, uniforms, and equipment. This year, We purchased new software that will help us manage the kennel a little more effectively. And then the rest of it has to do with communications and training for the animal control officers to keep up their certifications. For 2014, some of the things that we're working on for police department is working towards our goal of our WASPIC accreditation. That's something we've wanted to do for quite a while. It's a lengthy process. Once we notify WASPIC of our intentions to go down the accreditation, we have 1 year from that date to get it accomplished. We're going through right now in preparation to notify WASPIC, and with the hopes that we would be accredited in 2015. So we'll start the process this fall, notify them, and then hopefully get this taken care of and get our accreditation no later than 2015.
Would you spell out WASPIC for me?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. It's the Washington Sheriffs and Police Chiefs Association. So what that brings to us from accreditation, it just means that we're following accepted standards and guidelines for policing. That most of the other agencies are accredited either through WASPIC or CALEA. Our reserve program, several years ago, we were down to pretty much just one reserve officer. We were trying to build it up to at least 6. This year we added 2 more, and we hope next year that we're going to be adding another 2 to give us that total of 6 reserve officers. And this piece from the court, again, the county did contract for the electronic home confinement, and hopefully all of those costs are now passed on to the offender, whereas in the past we did have to pay a contribution to that. So we hope to realize some savings in our fees for that change. Any other questions?
Paul?
Just curiosity, when I was first on council, the drug seizure fund was actually a significant source of income. My guess at this point is that that's no longer true. The uses of that seizure fund are quite limited. They're pretty limited to basically equipment. But I was just curious, maybe Jennifer knows, do we have any projections on what's going on with the drug seizure fund?
It has changed a little bit because of some of the changes in search and seizure that in years past we were able to seize more items, vehicles, that sort of thing that we would put back into the fund. That has kind of slowed down a little bit with search and seizure changes, and then changes with the legalization of marijuana.
Well, for example, in '06, I think we actually busted 2 meth production facilities within the city, and it's been a long time since that's happened.
Actually, we're not seeing like meth houses like we used to, so that has kind of gone away. There's still other problems, other issues. As you know, Dingo is retiring. We have another dog coming on that will also be narcotic trained as well as trained for patrol duties. But we still get monies coming into that fund. There's still seizures. Even though things may not be as active in Washougal, our handlers participated in a drug raid that took place about 2 weeks ago. It was in the paper where they assisted the FBI and other agencies. So we'll see some proceeds from that arrest into our drug fund.
Thank you.
And traditionally, that fund we haven't used, I don't believe, so much on equipment. It was mainly the overtime for the officer and the dog handler and covering those costs out of there rather than through salary and payroll.
We do run some of our canine associated training through the drug fund, and we also have purchased some equipment. Jennifer was pretty tight with me on that, so I try and run things through her before I go out and do that. But it's my understanding if it's drug-related or used for fighting drugs, that we are authorized to use those purchases for that.
Enhancement of drug and enhancement is the key word.
So she's
The enhancement of what?
Of the drug enforcement,
Okay.
not the drug usage, drug enforcement.
Other questions for Chief Mitchell? Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, if I could get if someone would be so kind, a motion and a second in regards to tabling the other budgetary items to October 14th.
Second.
Third.
We've got a motion and a second. Any council discussion? Dave?
Thanks for taking on the police one tonight.
You bet. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Earl, any last comments?
Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Under Mayor's report, I've got just two quick items. We've already covered the Port Trail and Recreation meeting tomorrow afternoon. We also, just a reminder, we do have our town hall meeting this Saturday from 9 to noon up at Washougal High School. We're in the Commons area. Okay. So not the Performing Arts Center, the Commons area. And then we do have some posters that are going up in City Hall in regards to the Oktoberfest at Amnesia, which is October 4th and 5th, Friday and Saturday. So you'll see some activity on those going up. Items from council members. Brent?
No, nothing.
Paul?
Just very briefly, I'll be up in SeaTac for a 2-day Board of Trustees meeting for the Association of Washington Cities Employee Benefits Trust. See if what we can do to hold down costs even further. And then the week after, I'm up in Linwood for 2 days for the Healthy Worksite Summit. And I just wanted to remind that I think we do have an executive session coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Joyce?
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Nope.
Dave?
Public safety, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. I just got to it, sorry. At noon on October 6th, there will be a blessing of the animals in downtown Washougal. St. Anne's Episcopal Church does it every year in honor of St. Francis of Assisi. So bring your pets.
My two 17-year-old cats.
Yes, we have cats, dogs. Shannon brought her birds last year. We have lots of different
My
kinds
cats
of
are
animals.
Presbyterians.
I think somebody brought a horse. Anyway, it's fun.
Dave?
Just briefly, the Public Safety Committee meeting was canceled this month. We had one of the 3 council members in Florida, another in Hawaii, so we had to cancel the meeting. We'll do it again next month, third Monday.
Connie Jo?
I am a grandmother. Would you like to put her picture up? I started to email it to you, and I thought you'd probably laugh at me. Her name is Tessa Connie Sue, just in case you want to know. Named after me and the other grandma. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we will move to executive session in regards to personnel and litigation. I'm going to call it 10 minutes. 10 minutes, possibly 15, hopefully closer to 10.
Say 10.
No action to follow.